Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and you're all very welcome along to our Marine Ireland Industry Network webinar on funding opportunities for innovative marine companies. Just to introduce myself, I'm Curran from Enterprise Ireland. I'm a senior technologist with Enterprise Ireland. I cover off the marine space. And just in case anybody's not familiar with what the Marine Ireland Industry Network is, we are the umbrella organization, I suppose the best way of describing it, for the marine industry sector in Ireland. And we are supported by Enterprise Ireland, the Marine Institute, and a number of other agencies. And what we do is we try to bring together that geographically dispersed marine sector in Ireland. So we've got companies up in Killybegs, we've got companies in Cork, companies in Wexford, and so on. So what we're trying to do is to bring those companies together. We're trying to make them aware of each other's capability with a view to potentially building collaboration. We're making them aware of market opportunities, things that are emerging at national level and also indeed at international level, things like, offshore wind and floating offshore wind and where that is and the opportunities that are arising there in that sector. So we're trying to build collaboration between those diverse companies. We're also creating, I suppose, a shop window in which we can showcase the capability of Irish companies in the broader marine sector. And we keep an eye on traffic to our website, and a lot of that traffic is from overseas. So it's like I say, a shop window whereby companies or players in the international market can get a better understanding of what's happening in the marine sector in Ireland and can understand the capabilities of Irish companies. Couple of housekeeping pieces. We are recording, so the session will be recorded and will be available subsequently. If you're just attending, you won't be able to unmute your mic or put on your video, but you can use the chat function. So do please put any comments or questions into the chat and we will follow up on them. So what we're going to look at today are a number of different funding mechanisms that are available to companies in the marine space. Now, some of these funding mechanisms are specifically targeted at marine, some are broader, generic, for the want of a better term, funding mechanisms, but with particular applicability for the marine sector. I would say that all our presenters only have 10 minutes each. So what you're going to get is really very much a high level snapshot of these funding mechanisms, the funding approach, the criteria that apply in terms of what the funder is looking for in terms of a specific yield, if you like. So in fairness to our presenters, what you're seeing here is very much high level. You will need to subsequently have a conversation maybe with the individual presenter here around finding the best fit in terms of a funding mechanism for your particular technology or company or whatever. So keep that in mind. The presenters will do their best, but it is a tough thing to get across a significant amount of information in that 10-minute pitch. One thing worth knowing, by the way, is that there is a new funding mechanism which has just been released by SCAI, which is called Research, Development and Demonstration, or RD&D. That piece is a new one. It doesn't specifically mention marine or marine renewables, but we would assume that it's open to that kind of area. It seems to be very broad one, so it's I suspect designed that it can be used for multiple applications. Some of the presentations you're going to hear here this morning this afternoon rather, are pre-recorded. So what we've got are two pre-recorded ones initially, one around Hatch, which is that incubator and accelerator for companies in the aquaculture space. And second one is a company that came out of Hatch, and a really interesting case study in terms of moving from that incubator slash accelerator space into the big bad world and looking for funding from VCs. And we've got Jennifer O'Brien from See and Believe. She's the founder and CEO of See and Believe. She's out in California at the moment, actually. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the challenges around VC funding, private sector funding. We've then got our part two, and the presenters there are live. So we've got Tom Scanlon from BIM, who's going to talk about the funding mechanisms that they have. Siobhan Horan, from a colleague of mine from Enterprise Ireland in Dublin, who's going to talk about the DTIF, that's Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. And we then have Noel Daly, who's with HPSU, High Potential Startup in the jargon of Enterprise Ireland. He's going to talk about that funding mechanism and how it's potentially applicable and the criteria around that. And then finally, we've got Horizon Europe, and we have a live contribution from Sean Burke, who's national contact point for EIC, which is a particular element of Horizon Europe, not specifically focused on marine, it has to be said, but very relevant. And then Fiona Grant from the MI, who's also a national contact point on Horizon Europe. So it's a mix of pre-recorded and live. One question, by the way, I want you to have in the back of your minds, and please put it into the chat, is what gaps exist in funding and supports for the marine sector? So it'd be interesting in getting your views on that, on those kind of key issues. Right, so in terms of what else we've got, I may have mentioned it when we started out, but we do 4 networking events per year in MIIN. 2 of those are face-to-face and 2 are virtual. Today is obviously one of the virtual ones, but there is a face-to-face networking event coming up, and we do like to bring people together because we feel that that's what we're all about, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So coming up on Thursday, the 8th of June in the Clayton Hotel in Limerick is a face-to-face event that evening. We'll be able to send you on details. What the reason for doing it on that particular day is it's at the end of the Oceans 2023 conference in UL. And Fiona's going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. That's a big conference that's happening in UL in June, and we're sort of piggybacking on the back of that, a MIIN event. We would hope to have at that not just our own MIIN members, but also Canadian delegation who are coming over, and indeed any other marine industry clusters that are likely to attend the Oceans event. We'd like to have them along as well, because we want to build that network, not just our own national network, but we want to interact obviously with international networks as well, international clusters. So that's that piece. Put that in your diary, please. Thursday, 8th of June. The IMDO, International Maritime Development Office, Edel O'Connor is a relevant person there, well known to this parish and a great supporter of MIIN. Edel has asked us to publicise this. This is digitalisation of the maritime supply chains in the Atlantic area. This is an event actually on tomorrow in Dublin, in the Conrad. So if you're interested in that area of digitalisation, there's a link there in the slides. So you can sign up for that if digitalisation is your thing. Right. Question here is, are you a MIIN member? If you're not a MIIN member and you have a professional involvement in the marine sector in Ireland, you should be a MIIN member. Do please sign up. We have a very simple sign-up procedure. There's no money involved. The only criteria for joining us is that you have a professional involvement in the marine sector. We're always happy to promote news. So if you signed a new contract, if you've launched a new product, if you have acquired a new vessel, or you're running an event or whatever it might be, do please send it on to us. We're always very keen to promote that kind of interaction between the sector. We also have a marine jobs facility. So you can either put up a vacancy there, or indeed you can have a look and see what's on offer. Quite a lot happening in that space, actually, a lot of recruitment going on in this. And we also have social media platforms, of course, and Kaylee will kill me if I don't mention those. So LinkedIn and Twitter, we're on both of those. We also, from time to time, do a feature that we call our Spotlight, where we look at a particular individual company and we do a deep dive into that company. If you're a MIIN member and you want to feature in that and you want to be profiled and get a bit of airtime, do please get in touch with us and we'll be happy to facilitate that. The email is there, so it's min@bluewismarine.ie, and I always say, and I'm going to say it again now, that you hear my voice and you see my face fairly frequently for your sins, but the people who actually really do the hard work behind the scenes and who do a lot of the heavy, unglamorous, heavy lifting behind the scenes are the Blue Wise Marine team who provide the back office support for us. So major thank you to Mairead, Kaylee and Sinead. And also thanks to Jenny and Adele in the MI who provide us with fantastic support from that side as well. And I've got to say thanks to Owen as well from IT in EI, because he's sitting there in the background making sure it all works well for us. So thanks, Owen. Okay, so look, let's move on to our presentations for this afternoon. So we're going to start with Niall O'Reilly, who is Aquaculture Community Manager for Hatch, and Niall has recorded this piece of video for us.
Hi everyone, my name is Niall O'Reilly. I am the Ireland Aquaculture Community Manager at Hatch, and my role at Hatch is to manage any of Hatch's activities here in Ireland, primarily the BIM Aquatech Innovation Studio, an annual incubator we run on behalf of BIM. So I'm going to speak a little bit today about what Hatch does as a company and some of the funding opportunities we want to see, and maybe some of the do's and don'ts when you first meet with an investor. So straight into it, Hatch is a VC, we're an investor. We are broken down into 3 separate business units. So business unit 1 is the innovation services. We offer consultancy for industry, for investors and governments around the world in the aquaculture space. So it's really valuable for us keeping our finger on the pulse of any new trends or emerging technologies. The second business unit is the fund. So we raised our first fund at 8.4 million, which is now closed, and we are currently raising our second fund, the Blue Revolution Fund. So this is a much larger global impact fund. We closed our first round in late 2022 at 30 million. So yeah, significantly larger than our first fund, with a ticket size of 500k to 3 million for investing in mostly series seed and Series A investments. And then the final business unit is the programs. So we run 2 types of programs. We run our Global Accelerator. So this is in exchange for an equity stake in your company. We offer an investment into the business, and you take part in a 15-week program across Hawaii, Singapore, and Norway, our 3 offices. And then the final business program we run, our business unit program we run, is the Innovation Studios. So we run several of these around the world. The one we run here in Ireland is the BIM Aquatech Innovation Studio. So the main difference between an innovation studio and accelerator is, unlike the accelerator, there is no guarantee of an investment into your business taking part in this program. But unlike the accelerator, you don't have to give up any equity, and it's not 15 weeks, it's 2 weeks here in Ireland. I would say, just because there's no guarantee of investment, it is still very relevant for anyone who is raising or looking to become investor ready. So I just make it clear that there is no investment to avoid disappointment. That's not to say Hatch has invested in some of the companies that have come through this, as have some of the VCs that are the mentors on the program. And if you just look at this slide, you can see it is very successful for people who are looking to raise. So 5 programs have generated more than 14 million in funding, with the average company going on to raise 375k. So it's really good for, if you come to us, to the Innovation Studio with, right, I want to raise X amount by 2024, Hatch and BIM will work with you to, at the end of the program, you'll have a sending deck or a pitch ready for investors. We will have identified the best fit for you regarding to an investor and do our best to facilitate meetings with these investors, so you're not coming to these investors cold, which is very valuable. Some of the focus areas of Hatch as a VC. So we say aquatech, which is any sort of technology that solves a problem on the seafood or aquaculture supply chain. So that's anywhere from farm to plate. That could be developing new type of fish feeds, new types of sensor technology, genetics around breeding, disease, vaccines, alternative seafood, right down to stuff you wouldn't associate with aquaculture, such as supply chain, like blockchain technologies or financial services. So as long as it solves a problem somewhere on the aquaculture supply chain, it's in our focus area. And then finally, because I'm conscious of time, I want to keep this short. So what does an investor want to know? So what's the do and don'ts the first time you're meeting with an investor? So these 7 topics are probably the best guidelines. This is what an investor is going to want to know from your first meeting. So if you can put that into a presentation, even better. So technology, what TRL are you at? Do you have an intellectual property? Is it patented? If not, is it a trade secret? Have you done a competitor analysis? Then the team, a bit about you, your background, the cap table, who owns the shareholdings. We want to see that you've done a decent market assessment. The financials for the first meeting, it's are you raising? Have you raised? And the big one, I suppose, is what will the money be used for? So nothing worse than going to an investor saying we're raising 10 million. Great. What's that money going to be used for? Scaling. No, they're going to want to know that you've thought about where their money is going, that you are responsible financially, and you have a plan in place. And then validation, traction. You know, if you're a new business, you mightn't have a lot here, but any awards, trials you've done, reports, published papers, expressions of interest, that sort of thing. And another thing, what a lot of people don't think about, but a lot of VCs will ask when they get caught on the hop, is what attracted you to our VC? So what made you pick Hatch? They're going to want more than you guys have money and I don't. So maybe just have a look at the VC's mission statement, see if you align with them before that initial meeting. And then I suppose the other thing is be prepared. So I would start formulating a data room where you have everything on file that an investor might ask for. So, you know, any of the kind of financials are there. If they say, right, okay, that validation, that trial published, do you have that paper? You know, any of this sort of stuff, your competitor analysis, market assessment, have these things ready so that the deal is not going cold, that you're just able to ping them off fast after the meeting. So that's probably the best advice I can offer. But if anyone wants to reach out to me and speak a bit more about the different funding opportunities available through Hatch, maybe have a discussion, what's the best fit for you? Is it the Innovation Studio? Is it the Accelerator Program? Or is it the Blue Revolution Fund? My email is niall@hatch.blue, and Liam, you might just put that in the comments, in the comment bar. And thanks for listening, everyone, and apologies again that I can't be there live.
Okay, so that's great. That's Niall from Hatch Blue, and so now we've got a graduate of the Hatch program, Jennifer O'Brien, and Jennifer is founder and CEO of See and Believe. And Jennifer, we asked Jennifer to come along because she, like I say, she's out in California at the moment trying to raise venture capital for a really interesting technology around taking high-end proteins and high-end compounds from macroalgae. So we're just going to play this video now.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer O'Brien and I'm the founder and CEO of See and Believe. See and Believe is a company that's developing a range of alternative proteins, and we're scaling macroalgae in the west of Ireland. And I'm delighted to be here with you today to talk about my journey in raising venture capital funding, some of the pros and cons to having an investor on board, and if I can help any founders today, really delighted to do that. So first of all, the market has changed, and it's certainly a different economic crisis that we're all going through right now, and a different climate to 2 years ago. And venture capital funds that are raising money on the open market are doing so at a much higher interest rate than they would have done in the past. So capital has become very expensive. And when venture capital funds are now deploying cash into companies, they're doing so with a lot more due diligence and making sure that they're investing in the right person, the right technology, and the right sector. But the good news is that we're all in really good spaces right now. The marine space, the climate space, agriculture is the sectors that investors want to see their capital deployed into. So that's good news. But a couple of other things that investors are looking for right now, that they're really focusing on getting to know the founder quite well. At the end of the day, they are investing in you versus the technology more so, and they're making sure that the founder has the ability to scale and the ability to really solve a real problem, not a problem that's already been solved before, but something that's significant and real in the current climate crisis that we're really facing right now. And they have significant competitive advantage, and that they have the ability to scale and generate profits and return on the funds. So at the end of the day, the VC is a business, and they want to ensure that their profits are returned, and ultimately that the founder has the passion, and it does have the ability to drive this forward during really difficult times. I was lucky enough to get a place on IndieBio, which is a life science accelerator program based out of San Francisco, which is designed for typically early stage companies that are still trying to prove their technology, but also need venture capital funds to do that. Thankfully, the program was amazing. It connected me and helped me build my network of just amazing people, incredible mentors on site, and ultimately during the program they introduced you to some key investors and key venture capital funds that will potentially invest in your company. So I would encourage anybody that's considering looking for venture capital funds or needs it at an early stage, that they would consider looking at an accelerator program like that to really help and drive your business forward and scale quicker than you could potentially do that on your own. Some of the pros and cons to raising venture capital funding. Well, firstly, the capital itself will help you accelerate and help you move faster than you would be typically on your own. But also that you have that network now, you have that ecosystem. Your investor will likely have access to follow-on funding. Some funds do offer that service as well. There are also, you have a board essentially that you have to report to that can provide advice and various other things. Obviously, the con is that venture capitals are going to take a significant chunk of your company. You're talking about 20 to 30% of your company at this early stage. So it's important to make sure that you're working with the right investor, and that you consider a VC firm versus a private investor, and that investor or private investor understands the market, understands the sector, and understands the challenges that you're going to be facing in order to deliver for them. So there's some key things. It is incredibly difficult to get capital right now. I think everybody's going through the same hurdles. But at the end of the day, VCs are still taking meetings, and they're certainly looking and getting to know the founders a little bit better, and ensuring that the technology is at a certain stage in order for them to successfully deploy capital. So that's something to bear in mind as well. But I feel really positive about this. I think we're in a great sector, all of us, and I think we can achieve, but without a network, it's impossible to do that. So apart from VC funding, building your network is more fundamental to any capital that you may achieve. So delighted to be able to share my experience today. And if anybody out there wants to chat a little bit further, or if you would like to connect with me, LinkedIn is a good place to reach out and get me on. Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, everyone.
And our thanks to Jennifer for that piece, and indeed to Niall for those pre-recorded. So now we're moving on to live presentations. So we've got Tom Scanlon from BIM. Tom is Investment Services Manager with BIM, and he's going to run through a number of the funding mechanisms that they have live at the moment. So Tom, floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Just before I kick off, I just want to kind of give you a bit of context. In terms of funding, there's three moving parts at the moment. We're at the end of the EMFF, the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund operational programme. We're at the cusp of starting the EMFF, which is the European Maritime and Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, which will run from, it's listed as 21 to 27, but in reality, obviously, it's going to run probably from 24 to 30, 31. And on top of that, the most current set of projects we've got are under the BAR funding, the Brexit Adjustment Reserve, which resulted from Brexit and the recommendations of the Brexit Task Force. So obviously only 10 minutes to do this. Some of the slides are quite text heavy, so I'll be skipping over. So this is just a whistle-stop tour. Unfortunately, I have to leave directly after for another meeting, but I'm quite happy. I'll leave my contact details, and anybody who wants to follow up on any aspect, more than welcome. So next slide there, please, Liam. Yeah, that's just in terms of what we'll pretty much cover. BIM as a seafood, our remit is the sustainable development of the seafood industry. So quite a lot of our supports are very laser guided to a specific issue in the seafood industry. I'll probably spend the most time on the Brexit Blue Economy Enterprise Development Scheme, or BEADS as we know it, because that covers the blue economy, and it's much more of a shotgun approach into that. But I'll give a bit on the Brexit Processing Capital Scheme, sustainable aquaculture, seafood training, fleet safety, marine tourism, and V-notching. So next slide, please, Liam. Okay, Brexit Adjustment Reserve, I won't spend long on this. We've got 265 million. That's running to the end of this year. So largely what's happening at the moment under Brexit schemes is we're coming to the deadlines for receipt of applications, because in order to meet the deadline of having the money out the door by the end of the year, you'll understand, but they're still open for smaller projects, but things like big construction projects in relation to seafood processing, for example, probably time has run out on those. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Brexit Blue Economy Enterprise Development Scheme, or BEADS, there's three types of support under this. There's support for capital investment, business mentoring and innovation, and upskilling and training. So, and you have to live within 10, or you have to live or work within 10 kilometers of the coastline, but I'll give more on the eligibility criteria later. Next slide, please. So it's funded under the BAR, or the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. The scheme allows is to stimulate growth in rural coastal communities and the blue economy in general. It's 25 million of fund there, and there's a 50% grant rate for projects of up to 400,000. That's the project is up to 400,000, so 200,000 in grant aid. Next slide, please, Liam. Okay. So the blue economy sector, it's quite a vague definition, but in terms of once it can be connected into the marine environment and its commercial project, then generally that would be the guideline I'd give, but there's no guarantees there. There's just some examples there in terms of coastal tourism, boat building, etc. Next, please, Liam. Okay, so there's also under there's project type 1, which is business capital or capital investment. Project 2 is business mentoring and capacity development, and training and upskilling is for individuals in terms of project type 3. Next slide there, yeah. So in terms of project type 1, capital investment, it's projects that support capital investment in the blue economy sector, including innovation, diversification, value adding, I'm sure no surprises there, increasing employment and business expansion. Next, please, Liam. Business mentoring is, I'm not going to go through ad nauseum the bullet points, but generally it's for things like new product development, if you need to employ a consultant, for example, for new product development or financial planning, marketing and promotion, export and distribution, any specific area that's relevant to your business and requires expertise. Next slide, please, Liam. Thanks. And then training and upskilling is, again, courses for individuals that are linked to the blue economy. Hasn't been a huge uptake on this one, I must say, but it's still there. Course must be accredited. The individual completing the training must be the applicant. So it's for the individual must be the applicant. And again, the 10 kilometre from the coastline rule applies. So next slide, please. So general eligibility, you must live or work within 10 kilometres of the coastline, be an entrepreneur, a business activity, be a micro small enterprise connected to the blue economy, and all projects must be completed by the 30th of September. That's to allow time for us to process the claim and to get the money back to you by the end of the year. Next slide, please, Liam. Okay, so that's just a summary slide in terms of the eligibility, or sorry, the support rates. Just the bottom one there of 80%, the SSCF stands for small scale coastal fishers. So you must be a licensed owner of a vessel that's under 12 meters. Next slide, please, Liam. Okay, again, I'll go on to the next one because I'm just be repeating myself. Yeah. Processing Capital Support Scheme. This is directly aimed at seafood processing businesses. You must have an SFPA approval number in order to qualify. So it's designed to support capital investment in areas of innovation and expansion and value adding. If you want to go on to the next slide there, Liam. Okay, so we have 3 grant rates that relate to the top 3. So transformational processing equipment. In other words, if it's new, highly innovational equipment, then it would attract the higher rate of 50%. Again, going down, you can guess the trend. If, for example, you're building a freezer just to add to capacity, it's going to, in all likelihood, attract the lower of 30% rate. Next slide there, please, Liam. Sustainable Aquaculture Growth Scheme is for aquaculture operations that want to invest in capital equipment, such as anything from tractors, trestles, I think renewable energy, that side of things. So again, general support rates are SMEs 40% and non-SMEs. In other words, large companies would get a lower grant rate of 30%. Next slide there, please, Niall. Seafood training. Again, this is an additional training scheme to the one I mentioned under the blue economy. Can get a bit confusing, but the BIM seafood training scheme is it's under the old EMFF. It's in the wind up of the EMFF program, and it's really for people who are directly require training directly related to the fishing industry. Not always, but generally. For example, if you want to become a skipper, if you want to do commercial dive, there's a commercial dive course, but you would have to be working in the seafood industry to take advantage of it. So again, anybody who wants to follow up can contact me afterwards. Next slide, please, Liam. Fleet Safety Scheme provides support for capital equipment related to safety on the onboard vessels. It's 40% in general, and it's open to owners. You have to be an owner of an Irish registered vessel. Next slide, Liam. Marine tourism is the same as fleet tourism, but it's for tourism vessels. So again, safety equipment on board tourism vessels. And I think we're coming to the end here, Liam. Next slide, please. The Inshore Fisheries Conservation Scheme. I'm going to skip that because that's now closed. It was open, but it's just closed recently. And bee notching that's just a conservation scheme. Not sure how relevant it is to our audience today, but it's for the bee notching of lobsters. It's quite successful. for buried females, buried lobster females, instead of them going to market, they're denotched and released. So it's a tag and release program that we support. So those are all the schemes that are open at the moment. But like I say, we're on the cusp of between the EMFF and the EMFAF, and we've also got Brexit in the middle of that. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to run here, but quite happy to catch up. I'll send on my contact details to Liam, and quite happy for anybody to contact me.
That's great, Tom. Thank you very much for that. Brilliant. Interesting that you've got for a lot of your supports there, you've got that criteria of the project must be within 10 kilometers of the coastline.
Yeah, just to be clear on that, that relates directly to the BEADS, the Brexit Blue Economy Scheme. Okay. Generally, people applying for our schemes, though, would be within 10 kilometers of the coast, if you know what I mean, if you own a vessel or whatever, but it's not, again, that's just specific to the BEADS one.
Yeah. It's an interesting point to make, actually, for anybody who's applying for any of these funding mechanisms, or indeed any other funding mechanism, is that every agency and every funding mechanism looks at the world through its own particular lens. So for BIM, obviously, that's one of the critical criteria, is that, you know, it needs to be coastal. It's designed to assist coastal communities. For somebody like us on our supports, it's going to be around jobs and exports. For high potential startup, they've got their own criteria within a 3-year time frame. So it's important for anybody who's potentially applying for funding under any of these mechanisms, or indeed any others, that you understand what are the drivers of the agency you're applying to. It's a bit like sending out CVs, I suppose, for a job. You know, you don't send the same CV to everybody. You customize it a little bit so that it suits you know, your own, that company's particular view of the world. And it's the same for funding mechanisms, so just keep that in mind. Tom, thank you very much for your presentation. Just there.
One last thing, I think.
Yep, fire away.
And it's my fault, I've stopped this slide early. If you move on to, or if you move on to the next slide, yeah, there's some contact details. If you want, what I'd recommend to people is keep an eye on the BIM website under the funding page, and which lists all our current grants. And keep an eye on Twitter as well for updates. Okay, great. Thanks for that, Tom. Okay, much appreciated. Thanks, guys. Okay, cheers. Take care. Bye. Right, we're going to move on, guys, to the DTIF, the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. And we've got a colleague of mine, Siobhan Horan, who is standing by in East Point, hopefully, Siobhan, and the floor is yours.
I'm here. Thanks, Liam. So my name is Siobhan Horan. I'm delighted to be speaking to you this afternoon about the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. This is an initiative of the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and we manage the fund on their behalf here in Enterprise Ireland. So this afternoon, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the aims of the fund, the types of projects we want to see, and just take you through the application process and any key deadlines that are coming up. So if we can just move on to the next slide there, thank you. So it's a large amount of funding that the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment have put together to promote disruptive technologies within Ireland. The fund is over 10 years. We have 500 million, that's our total budget for the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. And we still have 212 million to allocate in our remaining calls. We've just launched DTIF Call 6. It launched at the start of the month, and it's open until the end of May. So if you have any projects that would fit under the DTIF criteria, we would love to hear from you. We're very keen to get more projects from the marine sector, so delighted to be speaking to you about this scheme today. So the main aims of the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund, it is to support enterprises in Ireland to exploit enterprise opportunities associated with disruptive technologies by de-risking projects. So it's very important to us that the project partners are based within Ireland, and that any of the projects will lead to job creation within Ireland and economic impact within Ireland. The projects that we want to fund, they're collaborative by their very nature. So we are looking for collaborations between enterprises and the public research system. So an aim of DTIF is to build on the research that's ongoing in Ireland and to leverage that research for commercial impact. So we will be looking for a commercialisation plan as part of the application process to the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. The projects run over 3 years. So the collaboration is for 3 years, and we want to foster deeper and wider RD&I collaborations between the enterprises and the RPOs included in the collaboration. And another key aim of DTIF is to prepare Irish enterprises and public bodies to engage in European and global partnerships. So a lot of people will use the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund as a starter to then go on and secure some large-scale funding through European Commission programs. So if we move on to the next slide. So at this stage, it's very key to outline what we mean by disruptive technologies. There may be a lot of different views out there within the community. We know that these words are used quite a bit. From our point of view, disruptive technology, it's technology that has the potential to drastically alter markets and their functioning and significantly alter the way that businesses operate. So it can involve a new product or process, or it can also involve the emergence of a new business model. So it's key to point out that disruption, it's not about technology alone, but the combination of technology and business model innovation. So we really want to see projects that are advancing the state of art internationally. So next slide, please. So I'm just giving you an outline of the scope of the call. You've probably seen these before. They're the government's research priority areas under the Project 2040. You'll see sustainability is one of the themes that we have down here. It's a key focus area for us under DTIF Call 6. So any companies in the marine sector that are doing anything interesting, anything that you think would fit under the scope of the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund, we would like to hear from you. And I'll put up our contact details at the end. We have a group mailbox. So if you have something that you're working on, you want to question whether you think it will fit into the scheme, please do get in contact with us. We'd really like to hear from you. So if we move on to the next slide. So many of you may be familiar with the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund already. This is call 6. So we've already run 4 open calls, and our last call 5, was a sector-specific call. So we have changed the scope of the call slightly in call 6. So you'll see that in the past, we have focused the scope on industrial research. That scope has now been broadened in call 6, so it is industrial research and experimental development. So there are quite a lot of different types of projects that will fall within that remit. Another change is that enterprise partners are being required to provide financial information at the time of application. It's a necessity under the scheme to demonstrate that any enterprises are not undertakings in difficulty. And you'll find the definition for undertakings in difficulty in our call document, which I'll give you a link to, and you'll find any details that we need at the time of application will be included in that. So next slide, please. So how do we judge the projects? There's 4 key criteria that you have to keep in mind when you're putting together your application to DTIF. And these don't change. These have been consistent throughout our previous calls. So our international evaluation panel will be reviewing all the applications that come in, and they'll be looking at the strength of the disruptive technology dimension, which is very important. That's one of our weighted criteria. The economic impact and sustainability, that's our second weighted criteria. We also want to see the excellence of overall proposal and approach. And then we also want to see the quality and efficiency of the collaboration. So it's very important to us that every partner involved in the collaboration plays a key role, and they're all included in the project plan that you submit to us. So next slide, please. So just to give you an example of the different aspects that we would like to see in your application. So as for most of the funds that you're going to hear about today, it's very important that you have a strong lead partner and a very strong project management structure. That's very key for the projects as they continue on throughout the 3 years. These are large collaborations of scale. The minimum funding request for a DTIF project is 1.5 million over the 3 years. Enterprise partners are required to provide match funding. We have more information about this in the call documents. One of the partners has to be an SME, and that is key, and that the SME has to play a key role in the collaboration. So we want you to outline in your proposal what role the SME will play alongside the other partners in your consortium. To be eligible to apply for DTIF, you have to be a client of Enterprise Ireland, IDA or Údarás na Gaeltachta at the time of your application, or you have to be an RPO based in Ireland. And it's very important as well to point out what we don't want to fund under DTIF. So we don't want to fund any business as usual projects. DTIF is not here to fund business development. It is primarily focused on industrial research and experimental development. And like I said, DTIF is intended to fund meaningful collaborations. So we want to see consortia that have potentially worked together in the past, that have existing relationships and can articulate a very strong project management structure to us. So next slide, please. Just outlining here, as I've mentioned, the scope of DTIF has been expanded to cover industrial research and experimental development. So that now means that any projects between TRL levels 3 and 9 will be eligible for consideration under DTIF. So that is quite broad. So if we move on to the next slide. Clinical trials probably not as much of interest from this audience, but just to note that one of the features of the fund is that any enterprise partners, SMEs, will be eligible for pre-finance. That's a payment of 30% of the costs upfront. So you have the option to apply for pre-finance once you've been approved through the DTIF scheme. As I've mentioned, for any early stage companies, you have to prove that you're not an undertaking in difficulty to take part in the scheme as well. That's an EU definition, and that's outlined in the call documents. Next slide, please. So the call documents, they're available on the DTI website. I've included links to these. These have a lot more detail than what I've been able to go through in the 10 minutes. It will go through the eligibility criteria in detail, the selection criteria, the timelines that we're working towards, and we also have a draft application form on the website as well. It will be an online application, and the link to the online system will be live on the website as well in the coming days and weeks. So next slide, please. We've also given you a draft consortium agreement. So as this is a collaborative project, to be eligible for a DTIF funding, you will have to sign a consortium agreement and submit that to us so that we can get your contract issued. And you'll see that we've given you a draft consortium agreement, including any of the standard legal clauses that you will have to consider, and we can work with you to finalize that before we take your project to contract. So next slide, please. This is just an outline of the timelines for DTIF Call 6. So you'll see that we have a webinar next week where we'll go into a lot more detail on the eligibility criteria, the financial requirements for proving your eligibility as a non-UID company, and the evaluation process. So you're welcome to register for that. It's next Tuesday from 11 to 12, and it will be recorded. The recording will be available on the DTI website. The closing date for DTIF Call 6 is the 31st of May. It's 3 o'clock, very strict on that. If you apply at 1 minute past 3, you will not be eligible. So please do plan in advance. Don't leave it to the last minute. So, but we would encourage you to put that into your diaries and work towards that timeline. And then all going well, we would hope to announce the results of Call 6 and any projects that we'll be funding. There'll be a minister announcement in Q4 this year. We've got it down as October at the moment. So that's the deadline that we're working towards. Next slide, please. So I've just given you, it's a very brief overview of DTIF. There is a lot of detail to this fund. I've given you quite a lot of links if you do want to go and access additional information about it. If you are interested in DTIF, I would encourage you to sign up for the webinar next week and to get in touch with us. The email for the DTIF group mailbox is there, dtif@enterprise-ireland.com. If you want to talk to us to see if your project may be eligible, if you want to query any of the criteria, please do get in touch. I've included 2 further slides in the presentation which just outline the eligibility criteria. There's about 12 different criteria there. I'm not going to go through them now just for sake of time, but you will be getting these presentations afterwards so you can have a look through that. And again, any questions you may have, please do get in touch. So that's it from me. I'll pass back to you there, Liam.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Do keep in mind that deadline there, guys. It's not that far away if you're interested in the DTIF. Siobhan, if you want to send us on a piece, we can always put up that that webinar that you're running next week on the MIIN website, just to kind of remind people that it's available there and they can get more information on that.
Perfect, will do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, thanks, Siobhan. Right, we're going to move on, guys, to Noel Daly, who is a colleague of mine who is in the HPSU system in EI. That's the High Potential Startup System. Noel, floor is yours, sir.
Hi, thanks very much, Liam, and I'm delighted to be given the chance to talk to you today. So look, as similar to this, because look, it's all very top line stuff. So I work on the HPSU division in the EI. I'm part of the Life Sciences and Industrial Technology team. HPSU is an EU term for high potential startups. So Liam, if you wouldn't mind moving on there.
Sorry, no, there you go.
Okay, don't worry, thank you. So look, just in case you don't know anything about EI, the key thing is we're a business development agency, government agency, but we've up to 5,000 clients, and we interact with almost any sector you can possibly think of, obviously including the marine as well. And we provide a lot of financial grants and supports and equity supports to basically help companies from every stage, from pre-startup right through to some of the biggest Irish-owned multinationals. But the key message is that we're a business development agency. We're not just, so you shouldn't look at us as basically just a grant funding agency, because that's not the way we look at our own activities. Next slide, Liam, please. So basically, this is the key. It's a dreadful term, a dreadful EU term, HPSU. So what do we mean by it? It's basically, it's a company that has the potential to develop an innovative product or service for sale on the international markets. And the key thing here is EI is an export-driven agency. We're looking for overseas sales for our clients. And HPSUs have the potential to create at least 10 jobs and achieve at least $1 million in sales within 3 to 4 years of incorporation. A lot of companies don't achieve both, but we'd like them to achieve at least one. So next slide, Liam, please. So what are the kind of companies that we support? We've 2 HPSU teams in EI. I'm on one of them, the Life Sciences and Industrial Tech team. We've an ICT team. So basically anything in the marine sector would come into our group. So EI, there's hardly a sector we haven't funded. So it's largely anything in the manufacturing or internationally traded services, typically based on R&D, technical innovation, but not always. As I said, very much export orientated. We're looking for clients that are going to have at least 10 employees within 3 to 5 years, sales greater than $1 million. But again, that's not always possible. And the key thing is, from our equity investment sides of house, we can only put equity investments into companies within 5 years of their registration in the CRO. So that's a critical thing to remember, okay? So what we're looking for is obviously management teams, and for companies that are headquartered and controlled and fully owned, and obviously based in Ireland. So next slide, Liam, please. So how do we work with startups? As I said, we work with pre-startups right up to startups, and the ideal company for us is a company that we work with at a very early stage. And you can see some of the details there. We identify, we deal with up to somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 client queries a year. We might invest up to equity into 60 pre-seeds, and last year we invested in over 90 HPSUs. So we deal from pre-seed, pre-investments, right up to investing equity in companies, and that could be anything from a period of 6 to 18 months to 2 years. And while we try to be generic in the in the approaches that we take, it's not always possible, because we do recognize that kind of every company is unique, and we try to take that approach. But the key thing is we're looking for companies that have the ambition to scale and to target overseas sectors. And you see there in some of our HPSU post-investment supports, while the money's important, to be honest, most of our clients, the really successful ones, they'll value, like we've over 40 overseas offices worldwide. So a lot of the supports we give are not equity grant or equity based. They're marketing helps for, say, in the overseas offices. So next slide, Liam, please. So we have what we call a client engagement model, and I've touched on this before. Sort of a lot of what we do with clients pre-investment is not to do with necessarily with equity investment. So every company in EI is assigned a development advisor like myself, and what we try and do is run a variety of programs to help clients bring in funds and to get to the stage where they're at, where they're attractive enough to investors. So we have, say, things like we have a market research center. We work with the BICs, the 4 BICs throughout the country. We have access to the overseas offices. The guys later on will talk about the Horizon 2020. We run investor ready panels. We have a prep for seed program, all kinds of other programs that are not necessarily equity or grant funded, but they're still important for clients. Next slide, Liam, please. So just to touch on some of the programs that we typically use for startups, there's innovation vouchers, which is a 5K voucher to work with a 3rd level. And then there's the HPSU feasibility, which we do for pre-seed companies, but also for HPSUs, where we can provide up to 30K for market research, business plan development, technical research and prototype. And we've also got a new, and I have a slide about it later, about a pre-seed investment program where we can give up to €100,000 in a convertible loan note to help a company get off the ground. And then finally, we have our more normal sort of equity investments, which is typically, say, 200 or 250 plus. Next slide, Liam, please. So just a bit more details. The feasibility grants is something that we, a lot of our clients use, is that it's basically, we've changed it so they can get up to 70% support. And for HPSU, that's a maximum of 30K to help them do anything like, as it says there, to test out an idea, to see if there's a market for it, to do some technical research, if they do want to do some prototype development, or for help to work on their business plan and financial plan development. So that's probably our most common grant program, and something that our pre-seed companies, but are also our clients, actually typically use that a lot. And the innovation vouchers is very popular as well, 5K to work with a 3rd level. And they, EI might do as much as 800 from those in a year. And that's not just aimed at HPSUs, but of all EI clients, both big and small. So next slide, Liam, please. So this is a program we launched last year. It'll be open again. We've only run it once, but it'll be open again in a few weeks. So it's a pre-seed start fund where we offer between 50 and 100K in 2 tranches, with a matching investment of 5K or 10K to get the full 100K, and it's done through a convertible loan note. And so just to shorten things, I won't go into them in great detail, but really what we're trying to do, and in the current climate where investors or companies are finding it harder to raise funds, it's actually a very, very quick way to get up and running. 50K from EI plus 5K from the investors or the CEO or whoever's putting it in. And it's just to help companies get up and running. So on the last round, I think we funded, was it 30 or 40 companies, and it'll be open again this year as well. So keep an eye out for that one. Sorry, Liam, just I think I've only 1 or 2 more. So our most common one, and traditionally the one that we're probably best known for, is our equity funds. So what we typically do is we invest based on a business plan. So we're not like a VC fund where we don't invest with the basis of simply looking at how much money are we going to get back. But we are an investment fund from the point of view, our main targets are jobs growth and overseas development. So we're very much a state agency looking for that. But one thing we always do, we never go in, we're never more than 50% of the round. We always look for co-investors like every other investors as part of the de-risking, and we can invest in what are called CCRPs, or we tend to, as closely as possible, match the terms of the other investors. But really, what we are the earliest stage investor, and there's very few clients, startups in Ireland, that don't receive funding. But even for clients that don't want EI equity funding for whatever reason, we'll still work with them. It won't make a difference to us. And importantly, the last in there, EI ordinary, we never take more than 10% of the shareholding of a company. It's an EI policy, because we don't want to disincentivize companies. Next slide, Liam. And so, just in terms of our due diligence process, just to understand, we do due diligence across 3 areas: financial, commercial, and technical. Because at the end of the day, the investments we put in are provided by taxpayers, basically ourselves and other people. So we do a financial, commercial, and technical due diligence on all the investments. We ask people to complete a financial data sheet, which is the same for all investments. And really, what a lot of this is about, particularly in the current climate, we're looking for companies to raise at least 10 to 18 months cash flow. And it's got harder and harder to bring in funds, but we're there as an early stage investor. We also do commercial, and that's very basic, but in terms of, is there a market there? And are people actually going after the right market? And we do interviews with customers, potential partners, other investors, just to validate the opportunity. And again, as it says there on the right, we also do technical due diligence for companies that we haven't been working well with, or been working with over the long term. And all of this is brought together by somebody like myself, prepares the documents and brings it to our investment committee, which is chaired by our CEO, Leo Clancy, and that meets twice every month. And as I said, our target is to do up to 90 investments in a year. Next slide, Liam. Okay, and I think this might be the last one. So what are we looking for? Like every other investment, it's about management team. That's the single most important thing. It's not necessarily always about the technology. Most companies fail because of the team, not because of the technology. That's just a fairly quick. We're looking at the technology. What have the founders achieved to date? Even if it's the first investment, how far have they taken it? We're looking for market validation, obviously the size, but not just how are you going to get to market? What's the value proposition? Your business financial model, your revenue model, how are you going to make money? What milestones do you need to achieve to get either to the market or to the next funding round? Particularly if you were in the marine sector, and in some areas you might need to raise substantial funding, how are you going to do it? And finally, as a business development agency, we're looking at what are the employment prospects and what's the export potential just for Ireland Inc. And last slide, next, I think that's it. Okay.
That's it.
Thanks very much, Liam.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Noel. Really appreciate that.
I'll hang around for questions.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually,
Sure.
we've got 14 questions. Well, we've got 14 comments or questions in the chat there. We'll get to those, guys. But I want to move on. Just before we leave HPSU, actually, we have quite a number of marine companies in the HPSU portfolio. And we're always looking for more. So if you feel that that's a funding mechanism that's relevant for you, do please get in contact with us, and either myself or Noel directly, and we can have a conversation with you. I do some of the technical assessments, by the way, on the HPSUs for the marine sector. Okay, let's move on to Horizon Europe. And like I say, we've got 2 presenters here. Initially, we've got Sean Burke, who's going to talk to us about the EIC system. Sean, are you there for me?
I sure am. Can you hear me?
We can indeed, yeah.
Perfect.
I do have to say that Sean has put in the extra mile here. I badgered him until he did a presentation for me, and he finished it on Sunday evening. So I owe Sean big time on this one.
I had really nothing else to do on Sunday. That's a lie.
Okay, Sean, okay. Floor is yours.
So I'm basically the national delegate and national contact point for a program within Horizon Europe called EIC. EIC is European Innovation Council, and basically it's the amalgamation of a number of programs that were separated previously in previous programs like Horizon 2020. Next slide, please, Liam. So this is the breakdown of Horizon Europe now. The blue circle is what I'm over. I'm not going to talk about European innovation ecosystems today. And that's really it. And all I really wanted to highlight here is that there is a plethora of programs in Horizon Europe. I'm over the one circle, but there is somebody over health, there's somebody over civil security for society, etc. So if you have any interest in Pillar 2 or Pillar 1, there is an equivalent to myself somewhere in the network that will help you get in there. Thank you, Liam. Next slide. EIC, just to put this in context, the predecessor program in Horizon 2020 had a budget of about 3.7 billion. The Commission, just to prove how much they want to support industry, have upped that to 10 billion. And what that means is really there's an annual work program, and somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7 million or billion is divvied out every year. And along with that, and I'll explain in a little while, there is a co-investment of up to 3 billion coming in with that as well for externally. Next slide, please, Lynn. So what is EIC? EIC is basically an amalgamation of 3 separate programs that were separated and never the twain shall meet previously. Now the Commission have amalgamated them within this umbrella program called EIC. And they are called Pathfinder, Transition and Accelerator. Very quickly, Pathfinder is leading scientific research. Its objective is to get a new proof of principles around science and, if possible, breakthrough technologies. So it is deep tech. It is deep tech in every way. If you're not doing deep tech, you don't go into Pathfinder. This transition, EIC Transition Action then is a follow-on program that takes that breakthrough research and converts it and transitions it, if for want of a better word, into a technological innovation. So that's like taking scientific proof and converting it into a demonstrator that you can demonstrate the scientific breakthrough. And then the EIC Accelerator, which is the next one, is the one that takes that demonstrator, which is, for want of a better word, a proof of concept, or a first prototype, an alpha or a beta prototype of something, and converts it into a saleable product for the marketplace. And furthermore, funds the scale up within the international market around this. As you can see from the money there, it's all big money. There is no small projects. The smallest money is 2.5 million for transition action, 100% funded. The Pathfinder can fund between 3 and 4 million for a project, and the Accelerator can fund up to 17.5 million for a project. Next slide, please, Lynn. So this is just a summary of the Pathfinder calls, just so you're aware of it. The next call is the 18th of October, and it is around challenges. The Pathfinder open call is over. And the challenges are over on the right-hand side there: clean and efficient cooling, precision nutrition, responsible electronics, space, energy harvesting. Not really appropriate for this audience, I admit, but I suppose what I really want to say is that if you're going in for a challenge versus an open call is you define yourself what you're going to do. But if you're going in for the challenge, the success rate tends to be a bit higher in challenge. It's a very competitive program. Next slide, please, Liam. The transition action, again, as I say, is finance can be up to 2.5 million. There is booster grants associated with it. I'm not even going to go into that today. It kind of covers, as I said, the scientific breakthrough converting into a prototype or an alpha prototype or a beta prototype. The problem with it is it's not an open call. You can't apply for it, even though there is an open. It is an open call and there's a challenge call, but it is not open to every entity to apply. You must have done some scientific research and validated within a European project previously to go into this. And that's why who can apply under that. You can see it's you either have done a Pathfinder or on the previous program, Future and Emerging Technology project, our European Defence Fund project, our very low TRL challenges within Horizon 2020, and European Research Council funding as well. So there, it's quite limited. Okay. Next slide, please, Liam. Again, it's a 2.5 million, 100% funded. The challenges and the open call have budgets associated with them. The challenges in this one are all around micro nano biodevices, environmental intelligence, and chip scale optical fiber frequency combs. There are 2 calls per year. Next one will be very soon on 12th of April. And then another one in 27th of September. Next slide, please, Liam. So this is just to show you that there are some projects that are funded in this, and some challenges that are being addressed here. Hydrosphere, soil and plant, soil monitoring, the aqua and biodiversity is a big feature of this program. So next slide, please, Lynn. The accelerator, this is the big money ticket. This is the up to 17.5 million to a company. What is it looking for? The previous 2 programs that I talked about, any entity can apply. It can be a multinational, it can be an academic, it can be an SME, it can be whoever. The EIC accelerator, because it is a business accelerator program, accelerating the potential of new markets with very disruptive technologies, as in deep tech technology breakthroughs. Only SMEs or small mid-caps can apply. And it is about funding long-term engagement in the project and in the company to scale up. Next slide, please, Lee. So there are basically 4 buckets of funding within this, and it ranges from anything from a grant only of 2.5 million, which constitutes 70% of the eligible costs, to an investment only, which is just you're looking for investment of up to 15 million in a co-investment scenario. And in between then your grant and investment, or maybe grant first with investment to follow at some later stage in life. Next slide, please, Lynn. So what is the EIC accelerator funding? You probably are not sure if you understand the TRL scale, technology readiness level scales, but it is funding later stage development and early stage deployment and scale up within a marketplace. It doesn't fund, say, for instance, DTIF, which would be down in the TRL 3 to 7 range. The next slide, please. Thank you. Again, as I said, there is an open and a challenge call. The budgets are quite large. Even if you look at the challenges there's 100 million for energy storage, and there's biomarkers, etc. So the challenges are very substantial. There are 4 calls per year, and it is a very convoluted system. There is a short form application followed by a full proposal if you get through that process, followed by an interview stage if you get through that process, and then you start to do the grant negotiation. So God bless you if you get through all that. Next slide, please. We did have a number of successes in the marine thing, but these are a number of projects. They're not directly blue growth or anything. For instance, Aerocomps got funded within the EIC accelerator to do a new type of sensor-based wind turbine blade. Design Pro did a energy harvesting from low streams and low tide, low flow. I couldn't think of the right word. Thank you. And then UCC and UCD have done, and UCG have done a lot of work in the Pathfinder type projects, the early stage research, but they haven't transitioned into anything tangible that can go to market yet. Next slide, please, Liam. Just to say, there's two of us involved in this, myself and my colleague James Walsh. Contact us if you're interested. A good thing to look at to get a sense of the types of projects that are funded here. Go on to just go to Google and look up the EIC Accelerator Data Hub, and that'll all come up with all the detail of the Irish success in this. Ireland has been very successful. In fact, we got results of the EIC Accelerator this morning, and we were ranked second in Europe. The Netherlands beat us by a country mile, but we still beat the crap out of France and Germany and Italy, which is always a good thing to do. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, that's great. Thank you very much, Sean. Yeah, I mean, you can see there in terms of Horizon Europe, it's always struck me as a complex system. So you really need to liaise with your national contact points around who is to help you navigate that system. I think that's fair to say, Sean, is it? He's disappeared on me.
No, I haven't. Sorry, I haven't. I had everything turned off again. It is most definitely do not. What's the phrase they say? Do not attempt this at home. It is a very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to get through, and all the help you can get, avail of it, and we're here to help, and it's free.
Right. Okay. So key message there, guys, is if you're interested in Horizon Europe, have that initial discussion with your national contact point under whatever the most appropriate heading there in Horizon Europe. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Sean. We're going to move on then. This is our final presentation. This is from Fiona Grant. I am seeing things in the chat there and the Q&A. I will try to get to them, guys, but I'm running tight on time at this stage. We do have a final presentation pre-recorded from Fiona Grant here in the Marine Institute, so we're going to go with that.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fiona Grant of the Marine Institute, and I'm the NCP for Marine Elements of Horizon Europe. I'm sorry I can't be with you there live today, but I appreciate the opportunity to record this presentation. Thanks also to Liam Curran of Enterprise Ireland and Kaylee Laffey of Blue Wise Marine for facilitating this very short presentation on funding opportunities within Horizon Europe. So I am embedded within what's known as Cluster 6, which is the food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment area of Horizon Europe. And you can see a number of colleagues here on the top left-hand corner, Willie Ryan of DAFM, Mark Sweeney of Enterprise Ireland, myself and Darragh O'Neill of the EPA. There are significant other opportunities within Cluster 5, which is climate, energy and mobility. And on the bottom here, you see Mark again, Philip Cheesty of Enterprise Ireland, Bob Flynn of Enterprise Ireland and Louise Campion of SCAI. And I work very closely with them for funding opportunities in Horizon Europe for marine topics. We have a saying that no door is the wrong door, so you can approach any of us at any stage and they can redirect you to the correct person or advisor. In terms of our results to date for Horizon Europe, overall we've drawn down 27.8 million euros at funding, and of that 12.2 million euros has been given to Irish companies. This significant is 44% of the overall funding envelope. And you see a range of companies here have been successful to date in Horizon Europe. The projects they're involved in are very varied, around digital twin infrastructure for green smart shipping, low carbon footprint for animal protein, critical raw material resources and sedimentary basins, socio-economic empowerment of coastal communities, wave energy demonstration projects, enhancement of awareness and navigation, harnessing the marine microbiome and maritime operations. So huge number of opportunities there and successful proposals to date. So I'm sure these can give you some tips as well if you decide to go forward for a proposal. So the 2023 calls have closed, so they're not relevant to promote them here today. The 2024 topics in Cluster 6 won't open until the 17th of October of this year. However, the text for those is available, and I would encourage you if you are going ahead to do your homework early. So these are the topics that are open. They have various closing dates. So again, I'd advise you to go on the funding and tenders portal to look at those. But there are topics coming up around organic aquaculture, demonstrating nature-based solutions. There's another one around aquatic species in very challenging environments. So for sourcing novel enzymes and drugs and chemicals for different value-added products. There are ocean modelling topics and around minimising climate impact on fisheries. However, there are a number of other work programmes for Mission Ocean under Cluster 4, Digital Industry and Space, Cluster 5, as I mentioned, Climate, Energy and Mobility and Research Infrastructures. These are all areas which Ireland has a significant track record. I want to draw your attention also to the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership call that is currently open. The deadline for pre-proposals is the 14th of April. Industry can receive up to €200,000 over 3 years. And there are 4 areas there that are open. So the link to the Marine Institute website there, if people want to look at that in more detail. 2 events that you may be interested in. The Oceans 23 conference will take place in Limerick from the 6th to 8th of June. Exhibition opportunities are available there, but also if you just want to register, there'll be 700 stakeholders from marine technology and industry there and a large and diverse international audience. Next year in Dublin, from the 14th to the 18th of April, the Transport Research Arena Conference will take place. And this is a significant event in the European Commission's calendar. Bob Flynn of Enterprise Ireland is your contact there. Abstracts are open now, so you can contact him or look at the links here for further information. This presentation will be available. Finally, I just want to thank Enterprise Ireland and Blue Eyes Marine again for the opportunity. You can keep up to date through the national website, the Marine Institute funding website, and my contact details are here. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time today and I look forward to following up. Best wishes and regards.
And that's great. So thank you there to Fiona Grant who pre-recorded that for us. So you can see even there the diversity in Horizon Europe between what Sean was talking about and what Fiona is talking about. All Horizon Europe, but quite diverse. Now we have a small amount of time left, guys. We have about 8 minutes. So what I'm going to do is going to go to the Q&A here. And we have a question there. I assume that was meant for Tom. Do you deal with the seaweed manufacturing area? Yes, is the answer to that. Tom can fill you in there. But he won't actually be available. He's not actually available at the moment, but he will be available for subsequent follow-up. So Tom will be able to answer that question, but yes, seaweed is part of BIM's portfolio. Tom, does connection with blue economy include things that to do with floating offshore wind platforms? I would imagine in that context, and again, Tom will be able to give you a straight answer to this, but if it is aquaculture associated with floating offshore wind platforms or some other element of marine bioeconomy, then I think yes would probably be the answer. But in terms of if you're talking about the engineering piece, I don't think that's their space. Question, can Tom advise, they're all for Tom, can Tom advise if there are any supports available for the seaweed sector? Okay, so yeah, look, we'll follow up with Tom on those questions. Question for Siobhan, actually. Siobhan, you still with us?
I am, yeah.
Okay, Siobhan, so question for you is, what is the situation regarding how long a company is established where they change direction with something new?
Okay, so there's no guidance around the year of establishment of a company. For any companies that want to apply to DTIF, you need to confirm that you're a client of Enterprise Ireland IDA or UDROS at the time of application. you need to give us financial data to show that you're not an undertaking in difficulty at the time of application, and you need to be based in Ireland. The type of company you are will have an impact on the amount of funding you can draw down. So for SMEs, you can claim up to 50% of your eligible costs, whereas for large companies, you can claim up to 40% of your costs under DTIF. Was there a second part to that question, Liam?
Second part was not quite sure, to be honest with you, but the full question is, what is the situation regarding how long a company is established where they change direction with something new? I don't know, does he mean there, it's Patrick Duffy, I don't know if he means, do they change what they're manufacturing or producing or whatever? Maybe I have that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's no guidance around the age of the business when you're applying to DTIF. And when you are applying to DTIF, the duration is 3 years. So we will be asking you for a project plan for over the 3 years. So you will set out the different work packages that you're going to achieve. We can accept some small changes because it is a disruptive technology. We know there's going to be some changes over the 3 years, but any significant changes to your work plan would need to be reevaluated by our international panel. But if Patrick wants to get in touch with us at the DTIF, at enterprise-ireland.com, and we can answer his questions.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach there. But yeah, presumably if you fund the original project, you fund it on the basis of, the company is promising to deliver a particular thing. If that thing changes substantially, then that causes difficulties, presumably.
Yeah, if there's substantial changes, they would have to go out to reevaluation and may be deemed as a new application.
Okay, right. Okay, that's what we've got in the Q&A, and in the chat, we've got some bits and pieces in there. People are putting in, okay, so we've got various contact details there. EIC, yeah, okay, Kaylee's been busy there. I see following up. Thank you, Kaylee, for putting in all those bits and pieces in there. That's really useful. And she's put in, okay, great, you put in the digitalization event that's on tomorrow. She showed us the MIIN directory, MIIN Blue Eyes. Okay, so look, there's lots of good stuff in there. So in terms of time, we are at 15:27. Okay, we've got 3 minutes. I'm going to very quickly summarize what we've been doing on offshore wind with NEI, because people will know that's kind of a key area of activity for me. We are doing a market study visit to Copenhagen, to Wind Europe in Copenhagen next month, bringing a group of companies over there to walk the trade show, and also there's a reception there, and where we want to meet with some key buyers from the European system. We are also doing a national pavilion, an Ireland pavilion at Global Offshore Wind in the Excel in London in June. That's a great trade show if you're in the offshore wind business, because anybody is there, and it's a great opportunity to get exposure to that industry sector. We do have spaces available on that stand still, so if you are interested, get in contact with me around that piece. We are also looking at running our own 2-day event in November in Dublin. First day there, we'll be looking at the UK market for offshore wind in particular, but we'll also look at a couple of other markets. Second day, we will probably be looking at the Irish projects and where they are, and the opportunities around supply chain for the Irish projects. We as NEI have been asked to become involved in domestic supply chain piece as well as the export piece that we typically work on. So that's going to be an emphasis for us going forward. We obviously everybody wants, certainly everybody in the marine sector and everybody in I think coastal community wants to get the greatest possible return for Ireland Inc. out of this industry in every sense, both from a decarbonisation point of view, but also from employment in coastal communities. That whole element is such a huge opportunity in terms of delivering for coastal communities and employment in those areas. So look, very quick summary of what you've seen here today. Various different funding mechanisms. I'm not going to go through them all again, but probably the best thing to do, probably the best advice is to have a conversation with those key players, those key presenters that we've just heard from there, in terms of the funding mechanisms. Do keep in mind that piece I said earlier, that you need to be delivering, I suppose, on those key criteria that everybody has, and everybody has their own little slightly different set of criteria, which I'm sure is very frustrating if you're applying, but it is absolutely key in terms of needing to deliver. So it's important that you keep that in mind. If you want additional information, do please absolutely feel free to get in contact with us in MIIN, and we will link you up with the most relevant kind of person within any of those funding mechanisms. That's it from me, guys. We're bang on at 15:30. Many thanks to our presenters for being so good on time. I'd like to thank Niall, Jennifer, Tom, Siobhan Horan, Noel Daly, Sean Burke, and Fiona Grant for your presentations and for your support. And like I say, as always, thanks to the Blue Eyes team who sit behind everything and make it all happen. And Owen from EIIT who kept us going technologically. We will have the recording. That recording will be available. We'll get it out on the website so people will be able to go back and look at those presentations in detail and do a little more digging around the best funding mechanism for them. But look, thank you very much. We would hope to see you in June in Limerick. It'll be a much more informal event. There might even be a few beers available. And we really look forward to that. And look, thanks for your help. Thanks for your support as ever. And take care. And we'll see you at the next MIIN event. Keep an eye on the website, and we'll keep you up to date on what's happening in the marine sector. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.